Okay, so today we're going to be talking about frequencies. What are frequencies? What is a frequency? Hello everyone, and welcome to WavSpot. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Austin Knaus, and I've been working with audio for the past 20 years. The first job I ever had was as a radio station engineer for WVLP 98.3 FM, which is a small college town radio station in Indiana. In the many years following, I made my way into music production, as well as live performance as a touring DJ, opening for labels such as Mousetrap, Anjuna Beats, Insomniac, and playing for music festivals such as Dance Festopia, Backwoods Music Festival, Spring Up Celebration, and Impact. After live events took a hit in 2020, I ended up selling my entire studio and starting a more stable career path as a technology specialist for Shure microphones. I also represented a multitude of other brands such as LEA amplifiers, Klipsch, Denon Professional, Rain, and Listen Technology. Now, here in 2024, I fly all over the U.S., commissioning C-suite and executive level conference rooms for some of the top-ranked Fortune 500 companies, and I didn't even finish high school. I'm taking everything that I've learned over the past 20 years and boiling it down to the basic fundamentals in hopes to give you a fast track to a better understanding of the world of audio. So, let's dive in. So, what are frequencies? Or better yet, what is a frequency? So let's break that word down. Frequency, frequent, right? Frequent. How frequently do you go get coffee? How frequently do you drink water? How frequently do you do things? You have habits that you frequently do, right? Frequent. Frequency is the number of times something repeats. And within what time period does it repeat? Frequency, frequent, means how often. Frequency is how often an event occurs over a set period of time. We keep it easy in audio, so that set amount of time is actually 1 second. The event, we can consider that a cycle. Cycles per second. This is fundamental because this is actually a measurement called Hertz, and it's abbreviated Hz. So if you were to see 1 Hz, that would be considered 1 Hertz, or 1 cycle per second. So what is a cycle? A cycle, otherwise known as a wave, is a single positive and a single negative pressure change. So we have a positive pressure change, then that goes to neutral. And then we have a negative pressure change, and then that returns back to neutral. This is called amplitude. Amplitude is a change in pressure, whether it be positive or negative relative to neutral. Okay, what does that even mean? Think about air pressure. Have you ever been in a plane or driven through the mountains? You can feel the pressure in your head change, right? Or you chew a piece of gum when you're on the plane so your ears don't pop because all the pressure. Well, that's air pressure, and that is changing constantly. Take a look at these speaker icons really quick and tell me if you can notice any of the similarities. What are the lines coming out in front of the speaker? And you might say, it's the sound, dude. Duh, that's what speakers do. And you would be right. That's exactly right. But what does that have to do with frequencies? Everything, right? Everything. We could also think of frequencies as vibrations. To understand this a little bit more, let's talk about the way the ear works. The human ear responds to changes in air pressure. A positive and a negative air pressure by your ear triggers your eardrum to move back and forth. Your eardrum moving back and forth touches this itty-bitty tiny bone inside your ear, which essentially is like a drum beater for a kick drum, and it taps on your cochlea. The cochlea is filled with fluid, and it vibrates like a drop of water in a still lake. So now that we know how the ear works, let's take a look at this speaker. So the speaker, as it sits, is in a neutral state. It can either move forwards or backwards. If it moves forwards, it pushes the air and it condenses it, making it a compressed area of air molecules. And when it pulls back, it actually expands the area. So the area of molecules is less dense and it creates a negative pressure. And that change of pressure of compressed and expanded molecules is the changing of pressure that we interpret as sound. So if we have a positive and negative cycle over 1 second, that would be considered 1 hertz. What happens if we have 2 positive and 2 negative cycles over the period of 1 second? That would be considered 2 hertz. Now, that's really, really low. Humans can only hear from 20 hertz all the way up to 20,000 hertz or 20 kilohertz. On a low note, we would hear something kind of like this. Super low. If it's on your phone, you probably didn't hear that. This is a mid-range. Then here we have a high range. Altogether, those are different frequencies. So if it's below 20 hertz, it's considered subsonic because we can't hear it. And if it's over 20,000 hertz, it's considered ultrasonic because it is above what we can hear. So if the human ear can only hear from 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz or 20,000 hertz, we can deduce that this speaker, right, is moving back and forth either 20 times in a second or 20,000 times in a single second. The slower the frequency, the lower the number, the lower the frequency, the more bass it has. The higher the number, the higher the frequency, the bigger the number, more high pitch the frequency is. The higher the amplitude, we would consider that louder. So a high amplitude is a loud sound. A low amplitude is a quiet sound. Frequency is also interrelated with pitch and tone. Amplitude is interrelated with volume. So let's take a look at some different frequencies. So this first one is going to be a low frequency. So it's going to be a little bit slower. And if you're listening to this with your phone, even maybe some computers, you probably won't hear this. So this is a low frequency. So now let's play a medium frequency. And we can notice that the speed is going to be a lot faster. There's going to be a lot more peaks and valleys. And we also noticed that the pitch went a little bit higher. So if we go to a high frequency, we can see that there's going to be a lot more waves. There's going to be a lot more repetitions, and it's going to be even higher pitched. We can't even count those. We'd have to zoom so far in. What happens when we go from a low note to a high note? The frequency goes from a low repetition to a high repetition. Vice versa, if we go from a high pitch to a low pitch, or a high frequency to a low frequency, a high note to a low note, a high tone to a low tone, the wave goes from many cycles to few cycles. Understanding these two fundamentals is crucial to understanding how audio works. A sound wave can have a low amplitude with a high frequency, or it can have a high amplitude with a low frequency. It could be a low amplitude with a low frequency, or a high amplitude with a high frequency. Amplitude and frequency work together, but are independent of each other. You can have a quiet sound with a high pitch, or a loud sound with a low pitch. So, what are frequencies? Frequencies are tones or vibrations that are measured in cycles per second, otherwise known as hertz. They can either be loud or quiet, low pitch or high pitch, otherwise known as notes. In a musical aspect, we would consider a frequency a note, or a combination of frequencies are called chords.